The Unrelating podcasts are meant to be for education and entertainment. They don't constitute a service or advice. For personal struggles, please reach out to a medical or mental health professional.
So, Michelle, the holidays are here, and we know what that means. Stress.
What a way to kick it off. Yeah, I'm excited to talk about this.
Really quickly, what is your top holiday stress or anxiety?
I would say there are several, but the one most prevalent is that we travel to a snowy place. And so I always just dread the traveling piece. And is there going to be a huge snowstorm? And, until I actually get to our destination, it's hard for me to relax.
That's a good one. I can understand that, being from the Midwest. I've also experienced some really crazy weather and actually had some flights canceled in the past, which can be really stressful. I think with me, I echo that one, but I also feel like I have to be very strategic in how I, plan our holidays. And so, you wish you could spread yourself out over, you kind of do that. You spend time with both your parents and your spouse's parents, but I don't get a chance to do that as well. So for me, I feel a bit guilty because I'm not able to spread myself out and see everybody at the holidays. So I guess there's a little bit of guilt there. You gotta pick a direction and go. So I struggle with that sometimes.
Yeah, no, we talk about that all the time, how lucky we are that our families are, about an hour and a half away from each other, and that we don't have to make those difficult choices about, which family to see when, as much as other people have had to do that. But this special holiday episode that we have here is exciting to me because some of us just kind of either go on autopilot or survival mode when it comes to the holidays. And even though there's joy involved, there's also just a lot of logistics when you're an adult, at least. So spending this time together talking about the holiday season feels very right to me.
Welcome to Unrelating with Kel and Michelle, and I'm one of your hosts, Kelly. With me is my co-host, Michelle, a licensed marriage and family therapist who's been providing individual and couples therapy for over a decade. Together, we'll explore how we engage in relationships, why we do what we do, and what causes people to unrelate. What's your favorite holiday movie?
Ooh. Oh, that's such a hard one, Kelly. My favorite movie is Spaceballs, and I'm trying to find a way to make that a holiday movie. But okay, I'm going to put it back on you while I think, because this is a very serious, high-stakes question for me.
I'll tell you mine. Well, I've got several. I love Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, but that's more of a Thanksgiving theme. But it is holiday-esque. That's just a classic. John Candy and Steve Martin. But I gotta say, I really love. Elf is up there with me for
Elf.
me.
I know, I thought of that.
But Love Actually, I think is just a fantastic film. Just really great holiday film. The Holiday actually is really good too, with Cameron Diaz, Jude Law.
I'm thinking of a movie, and it was an old one with Robert Downey Jr. and I want to say Holly Hunter, maybe. Something with holiday in the title too that was really good, just about the chaos of family during the holidays. Either The Holiday or Holidays or Home for the Holidays.
Oh, I think it's called Home for the Holidays.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Oh, my computer's so slow.
Anyway, he's great in that movie. And so is she, even though I'm picturing Holly Hunter, but it could be someone else.
Home for the Holidays.
Yay.
1995.
I was in high school.
For this special holiday episode that we're recording, we want to touch on a couple of themes, but really it's the anxiety that people can feel at the holidays and what some of those triggers might be and how, from your perspective, people can help address those anxieties a bit better, especially when you're dealing with family or just external uncontrollable circumstances. Let me read you some statistics that I found that around 2 in 5 people said their stress increases during this time of year compared to other times of the year, which is pretty significant. They cite topics like financial concerns, which is about 58% said that's not having enough money causes them stress, which is followed by finding the right gifts, or missing family or loved ones during the holidays. Those are also big stresses. But there's all kinds of anxieties that I think people can feel. It's social pressures. It's high expectations, feelings of loneliness, feelings of grief and loss, when you're missing some loved ones, and obviously time constraints or changes in routines can be really stressful. Especially you mentioned traveling. What would you say when someone says their biggest stress during the holidays is financial? What would you advise a patient for something like that says that?
Well, first, I would help them understand how normal that is. People tend to have put so much pressure on themselves during the holidays. And so a lot of the anxiety, I think, comes from high expectations or feeling like there are high expectations put upon you by family or friends or whatever. Um, so to me, it's just important for people to kind of slow down and really think about what they can control and what they can't, what's important and what isn't, and what is kind of an internal pressure you're putting on yourself versus the external pressures you feel from other sources. Um, though I have to be honest, this is a hard topic for me because there's like 1,000 different ways someone could feel about the holidays, good, bad, ugly, everything in between. So I don't want to get too niche and talk about only a specific kind of person having a specific issue. But at the same time, on a macro level, it makes sense that people are stressed during the holidays when you think about all the different factors involved in getting through this time.
Yeah, traveling is a obviously huge anxiety for people. Nobody likes to go to the airport. Nobody likes to get on planes. Nobody loves that. So I think it's a change in
Yeah,
routine for
plus the
people.
financial commitment. Yeah,
Cor-
sorry.
Yeah,
But
no,
yeah,
yeah. I
you
mean,
think about that and just trying to get to where you're going and where are you going? Is it somewhere that's like a relaxing place for you, or are you headed towards more stress if you're someone who, has a hard time going back to family or going somewhere where you won't be with your family? There's just so much involved.
and with COVID, who's to say you don't pick up a bug and then take it to your family, especially if you have, older parents. That's a concern too, I think, that people have. I can say that because I've done it. I've gotten on a plane, picked up a COVID, and then given it to my mom. So that was not, I felt bad about that. But something I don't know if I could control that or not, actually, but that was an anxiety that I definitely had going in. And then I ended up having more anxiety when I did it. So,
Yeah. And I'm someone who tends to get sick when I go back home to Michigan because, it's colder there and my body is like, what's happening?
yeah.
So,
People feel stress. Well, obviously, you're around family. There are those family dynamics, especially nowadays. It seems like there's more triggers.
can I just tell you how many private practice clients I've had in the past couple weeks that have come in specifically to talk about their fears around the political climate going back home? It's like a very real thing.
Hmm.
And it doesn't matter what it is you believe. We're not going to get into that. It's more so just going back home to a climate that may be different than what you are living and not knowing how they're going to navigate that.
When they come to you with these concerns, and this anxiety, what kind of pieces of advice do you give them?
Mostly how it feels kind of in other shows that Kel, you and I have talked about anticipatory dread, that concept, whether it's losing, your parents when you're an adult or just the things that we kind of suffer with before they even happen. So this feels like it's part of that conversation of like worrying so much about what you're going to do when you go home and to talk about politics or religion or any of the things that you may differ with your family on, um, whether it's worth or whether there's value in dreading it versus kind of coming to terms with, what you can control in that situation and how you plan to behave. Because you're not going to be able to control how other people behave or what they say, but you are going to be able to decide, and you have to be intentional, even when things are heated, to say, like, this is how I plan or I hope to show up in these conversations. And most people feel better when they get a little bit more deliberate about that.
Yeah. I think people also tend to like build things up in their head, and then in reality, it's never quite as bad as you think it's going to be. So you could go
Oh,
into
that's
a
so true.
family situation where you're dreading these conversations, but you can get there and it's ultimately they're quite pleasant. Or you're talking about things that are relatable. So I think that happens more often than not. People build up this. I think anxiety. I read this one time. Anxiety is just the fear of the future, things that could happen. It may not happen, and usually it doesn't happen. So, you know, I think people dread things that could happen and they don't end up happening, um, and then you feel better afterwards. Like, oh, I worried about that for all. It was for nothing.
And we kind of went on a tangent on in terms of like, politics and things like that, but more so, I feel like there's two categories of people. There's people who are going to be spending time with their family, and for some people that can be more high stakes or more emotional or more stressful, just because there's a lot going on. But then there's people who don't get to spend time with family. And there's, either the grief of that or the loneliness that comes with that. Uh, and, I think both deserve self-compassion.
I think it's important though to reach out. I think that it could be a phone call. It should be a phone call. But it definitely it could be, there's ways you can probably combat that a little bit more from a loneliness aspect. Maybe you can do a Zoom like we're doing right now. I think that goes a long, long ways for people in terms of connection,
Yeah.
physical, like actually seeing somebody. And so that's probably a good um, way of dealing with some of that loneliness too.
Yeah, you use the best word that I love, which is connection. So whether that's friends, family, some kind of meaningful role in the community, just carving out ways to feel connection with others, with yourself, with, like I said, with the community. All of those things are replenishing during the holidays versus what's the opposite of replenishing?
Uh,
Uh,
Deplenishing. No.
sure. Training. There we go.
Yep. Yep.
I mean,
Agreed.
you want to think that you're gonna start the new year fresh in January and be all replenished, but then like so many people just feel exhausted and drained and fatigued. And that's because, we're just kind of going on autopilot and or there's just so much going on for people during the holidays that, they don't get a chance to have those connections that are fulfilling.
Totally agree. You and I are both traveling for the holidays. How do you, as a parent, deal with that in terms of planning and getting the kids ready and then keeping them occupied while they're gone? I'm sure you as a mother are dealing with anxiety of just that whole and feeding them and the whole gift giving. So how do you deal with that?
Yes, I have trauma related to the early years of traveling with them when they were little. It was the most miserable experience ever anytime we had to travel because, having three little ones under 5 and especially on an airplane. And there was, I don't want to get too graphic, but there was always someone either throwing up or, sick or crying. And there was one time I was just holding the baby ones and counting the seconds, trying to just get to our destination. Um, and it was miserable. So now that they're a little bit older, I'll take it. Even though it's stressful, they're kind of self-reliant now. And so they will be able to carry their own bag. They'll be able to entertain themselves on the flight. And I think my lucky stars every day that we're not in that toddler mode of traveling or baby mode. Um, but I still feel stressed about it because you never know. Our youngest gets bored, obviously, on a plane. So a lot of entertainment needs and snacks.
And how do you entertain them, or what's your calendar like when you're gone for the holidays?
That part is lovely. Once we get there, it's amazing because, you get to, when you are going to grandparents' houses, you get to abdicate parenting for a little while. So,
Hmm.
they take over and it's like, winter camp for the kids. And so that's my chance to relax and actually read a book, for the first time in the whole year. Um, and I find that at least that piece is lovely because they're enjoying their grandparents, they're having a great time. They're rarely, it's not like every 5 minutes coming to me to ask for something, which is a lot of parenting.
Yeah.
Um, how about you though? I mean, because you guys sometimes you're with people who have little ones, sometimes you're with the grandparent, sometimes you're with your parents.
Holidays actually are really great in a sense that we typically travel to see our family, and the it's a lot of eating, and we have a lot of fun. We we are able to really take advantage of that time with family. I know it's my wife's favorite time of the year, and so it's very infectious. Her enthusiasm and her joy is very infectious for me. So she starts playing
And her
Christmas.
family is serious about eating,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
they're like the smoked meats family of the holiday season.
yeah, and I think she starts playing Christmas music in October, right? So I think she's all in, and really, I can't help but feel joyful based on her joy. So I've definitely become a bigger holiday fan since I've been with my wife. So that's really been a nice change for me, and I think it's really helped us our growth as a couple because it's something we can both really latch onto. Um, Not that there's some big letdown come January, that it may be a little bit. I'm sure she's bummed taking down the tree, but ultimately it does feel like this time from like Thanksgiving to Christmas is really a fun time for us. So
I love that contagious joy, where if she's joyful and you get to experience that, it kind of rubs off on you.
yeah, I can't say I'd feel that same exact way if I was with somebody else who didn't feel that way, or if I was by myself, definitely wouldn't feel that way. I guess sort of to wrap this up and kind of put a big bow on this topic. We talk about family dynamics. We talked about financial concerns and sort of the expectations people have when it comes to the holidays, and the feeling of loneliness and loss.
What's the big takeaway? Because, we are talking about stress, which is always kind of something that doesn't have an easy answer.
How do you counsel? What would you ultimately counsel people about dealing with this short kind of period of time throughout the year where all of our anxieties are amped up a bit more than normal?
I think it's helpful for people to understand what meaning they're making out of the holidays. And there are different holidays during this season too. You said Thanksgiving, there's Christmas and Hanukkah and Kwanzaa and Diwali and all these different um, different experiences people are having in connection with whatever holiday they're celebrating, if any. So to me, making meaning of what you think the holiday is about and what you want it to be, but also sticking to limits, because a lot of times the anxiety is, very closely connected to resentment, like have tos. I have to do this during the holiday, or I have this expectation on me during the holiday. And so working on not having a limit and then not crossing over it, because when you have a limit, but then you don't hold to it, that's a total resentment breeder right there. Um, but I would say that's something you're doing to yourself versus having done to you when you're the one who decides to cross your own limit, which is a difficult thing. I know I'm not trying to be glib about it. Uh, but also, I would say, again, going back to what we talked about regarding connection, finding connection with people, finding connection with yourself, and finding connection in your community and with the holiday that you're celebrating. Um, and realizing that come January, when you reflect back on what the holiday experience was for you, what do you want that to be? If you're, doing your Monday morning quarterbacking, what is it that you're going to say, like, that was worth doing, that wasn't, this gave me joy, this didn't? So preempt that conversation by thinking ahead and figuring out what is actually going to be replenishing for you.
Yeah, I love
And
that.
if you are someone who's, yeah, if you're someone who is dealing with loneliness, that's a bigger topic. So, I'd love to do a show about that, but definitely reach out. And there's so many things out in the community and people who would appreciate a hand or a hello. So you're really not alone.
Yeah. I just heard that people typically volunteer the most during the holidays, and they obviously want to connect and they want to reach out and help people, but it's almost like there's too many people volunteering during the holidays, and they don't spread it
Right.
out throughout the entire year, which would be probably helpful for these organizations. And just to follow up what you just said, I think just reminded me of, but like I think people should, and I could do a better job of this too, but I think people should just kind of be kind to themselves and forgive themselves because there is a lot of stress and you shouldn't be so hard on yourself. I am guilty of that, okay? But ultimately, give yourself a break. It's not, it is a relatively short period of time throughout a very long year. You're allowed to feel, um, I think, lonely or guilty or just stress in general, and that's okay. We all feel it. It is it's sort of a universal theme throughout the entire really world. So just be kind to yourself and just give yourself a break a little bit.
Yes, I totally agree. Because as much joy as there is to have, it's not the only emotion you're allowed to feel during the holidays.
Yeah, totally. Well, thanks, Michelle. This has been great. And I think hopefully people can walk away from this podcast with some learning lessons.
Yeah, and feeling like they can relate and that it's okay to have multiple feelings at the same time about the holidays.
Hopefully, you have a great holiday with your family and friends, and yeah, and enjoy yourself. And that reminds me, we're actually doing an episode for New Year's Day, the non-resolution show, we'll call it.
Yeah, I think that we're going to go with that anti-resolution movement here, in the sense of trying hard not to set up expectations or, again, come out of a stressful holiday season where we're putting a lot of pressure on ourselves and turn around and do the exact same thing in January. So we're going to talk a little bit about that.
If you're struggling with family, friends, or coworkers, in a bad relationship and wondering what to do, or you want a relationship and to set yourself up for success, then we want to talk to you. So make your appointment on Unrelating. To be a guest, ask a question, or recommend a topic, drop us an email at theunrelatingpodcast@gmail.com. And be sure to follow us on Instagram or Facebook.